J'ai le grand honneur de vous présenter Mary Lou McDonald.
Alain, bonsoir tout le monde. I'm delighted to be here with you. Sorry, in a slightly more frenetic state than I would have hoped. It's great to see all of you. To wish you well, to send all of our best wishes and our ongoing thanks and appreciation for your support for the struggle for independence, freedom, and justice here in Ireland. As you know, the story of Irish freedom from the very outset has been not just a national story, but indeed an international story. And we have known at every key juncture, every step in our journey, we have always needed the backing, the support, the solidarity, and very often the wisdom of our international family, our global diaspora, and our friends of Ireland internationally. And of course, perhaps nowhere more so than in North America. And I know in Canada for so many years, for such a long time, there has been such a strong bond with Ireland. And I'm really pleased to have this opportunity to have this exchange with you this evening at a time when the next chapter in the Irish story, in Irish history, is being written. We are living through historic times, my friends. We live now at the time where we will secure and I believe win referendums on Irish unity. I believe that we have the honour, but also the grave responsibility to be the generation that finishes this journey, and that brings Ireland to full self-determination, full nationhood, and full independence. In fact, today, in one of the Sunday newspapers here in Dublin, the Sunday Business Post, some of you probably read it, you will see that there is very interesting polling data, and it tells two really significant and interlocking stories. The first story that the polling data today confirms is that Sinn Féin as a political organisation, as a political party, remains the largest party right across the island of Ireland and remains on track with continuing hard work and application and a small rub of the green, a small amount of political luck. Sinn Féin may find ourselves after the next electoral contest, whenever they might be, in government in Dublin. I would hope leading a new government in Dublin. And of course, after the Assembly elections in the North, we hope perhaps emerging as the largest political party, and perhaps with Michelle O'Neill as First Minister, the first time for a Sinn Féin, a Republican First Minister. And I don't have to tell this gathering the significance of either of those eventualities emerging, the huge domestic and international significance of them. But if it were to come to pass that both of those things were to happen, well, certainly the impact will be absolutely phenomenal and seismic. And I say that to you, friends, not with 1 ounce of complacency or entitlement. We are very well aware that the difference between success and failure so often is hard work, application, persistence, stamina. And I'm happy to report to you that those are things that all of us Republicans in Ireland and internationally have in huge measure, and we will need them. We will need every ounce of that resilience and stamina. The second story, though, and the more significant, linked to the first, is the data that has been presented in respect of attitudes to Irish reunification. And what the Sunday newspaper, and it is only a poll and a snapshot in time, but it's an interesting one, reflects that 60% of those asked in the southern jurisdiction, in the 26 counties, whether or not they would vote for Irish reunification, responded yes to that question. So the old wives' tale, the fable that people in the south, in Munster and Connacht and Leinster, that they have no interest, that we have no interest in the reunification of Ireland, is simply not true. It was never really true, to be honest. But certainly in an age now where the unionist majority in the north is gone, the electoral majority is gone, and it's not coming back, at a time where we are living and we will live with the outworkings of Brexit, at a time of international pandemic and suffering, where the craziness and the jeopardy of having two jurisdictions, two health systems, two different standards in operation on a small island has been laid bare in the most dangerous and traumatic of circumstances. In that context, friends, be very clear, the conversation about reunification is well underway. And as Kieran and others, as Alan and others can tell you, Irish business, north and south, the community sector, agriculture, is way ahead of the political class when it comes to plotting out our next moves. And of course, all of this is very good news for us. It means now, in a very serious way, we have to begin the preparations for constitutional change. And we have been, as you've heard, we've been urging the government in Dublin, in particular, in the first instance, to get its act together. Micheál Martin or Leo Varadkar, whichever of them is Taoiseach. We need a citizens' assembly convened. We need it to happen as a matter of urgency, because the plans now need to be laid. It would be irresponsible at this stage not to plan for an orderly, democratic and peaceful transition to a reunified Ireland. So we're facing into very busy times ahead, and I know that we have an opportunity here for an exchange and for a Q&A. I want to acknowledge on all of our behalves, but on my own, particularly as Uachtaráin Sinn Féin, all of those who have gone before us, all of those who have kept faith with Ireland, all of those who have struggled for equality and for freedom and for independence for Ireland, because what is possible today has been made possible by the actions of generations of very brave, very courageous, indeed visionary people. And I think it's important when we meet in a gathering like this that we recognise that. And I don't know, Alan, if I have missed the Rita Adams award yet, or if that is pending this evening. It's pending. So in advance, I just want to again thank all of you for all of your work, and to say that we're bringing good news to you, good news from Ireland, and perhaps better news in that we will be asking all of you, all of us, to redouble our efforts now to bring our A game to this next phase of political activism, because the years ahead, indeed the months ahead, can and will be defining for us, defining for the future of Ireland.
Well, thank you, Mary Lou. We've been collecting questions from our participants today. We've got over 50 on the line, I believe, and they come from Nova Scotia, Quebec, Ontario, Alberta, British Columbia. We may hear someone pip it from elsewhere in the country, but it's a very good bunch of activists who have organized for us over the years. So it's great to have everyone here. So Saoirse Adams-Cushion has been going through all of our questions, and Saoirse has the lovely opportunity to present the questions to Mary Lou. So fire away, Saoirse.
All right. Oh, that's weird. I can hear myself on the other computer in the other room.
Hey, Saoirse.
Hello. That's the wrong draft. Technical difficulties all around today. Sorry, everybody. Okay, so Brian, first, several questions with regards to building support for unity within Ireland. Brian O'Regan raised the question of the impact of Brexit on Irish unity and the role the EU might play. Claire Delisle asks about priorities for building support for unity and the role of unionism. And Gabriel McCaffrey and Vincent Lee ask, how can we bring Alliance, SDLP, Fianna Fáil, and Fine Gael voters in to be advocates for unity?
Okay, well, Saoirse, maybe I'll just respond to those, and thank you, Gurmai Guv Galer, Asnakesh Thanashuk. Thank you so much for the question. Well, Brian, to begin with the question of Brexit, it feels like Brexit is now a bit like death and taxes forever with us. And as we have always known, Brexit isn't a singular event. It's not a moment in time, something that happens and then passes or subsides. Brexit is a permanent, in as much as anything is permanent in political life, a permanent game changer for the entire European continent, for the world in many respects, but a game changer in respect of Ireland. And let me say this. You will all recall a time when the partition of Ireland, the border in Ireland, was really a problem for us, a problem for the Irish, because it sundered our country, brought conflict and grief and the whole story that we know so well. Fundamentally, Brexit changes that and means that the partition of Ireland is now no longer simply an Irish problem. This is now a European problem. And it's a problem because on a very practical level, such a long, porous border on our island leaves the European market open, jeopardized for rogue goods or substandard product to seep through that border from Britain via the north and into the wider European market. And the European system will not countenance that. It's a game changer politically, though, more profoundly than on that technical level. And profoundly, it has meant that for the first time, certainly in my memory, in living memory, and I think in all honesty, for the first time since Ireland and Britain and the Danes back in the 70s joined what was the European community, for the first time now, Europe has not just the chance, but the obligation, we believe, to take a stand, to make a stance on the question of Irish reunification. Prior to Brexit, the story always went that Ireland and Britain, they were both members of the European Union, they were both members of the club. Britain was bigger, Britain had deeper pockets, and therefore it would have been considered diplomatically improper for the European institutions to take a position on Irish reunification. All of that is now changed and changed utterly. Britain is on the outside, Ireland is on the inside. Remember that the European Council, the highest authority institutionally in the European Union, has made clear that in the event of reunification, our entire island, the 6 counties, automatically lapses back into the European Union without any process, without any bureaucracy or any prolonged processes. That's a very, very clear indication that Europe awaits the north of Ireland's return to the European fold, but also reunification. So we have been saying for a long time that just as Europe took a position on German reunification, where they very positively, proactively encouraged them, just as they have a position, for example, on the question of the Cypriot partition, the reunification of Cyprus, so too now our European partners need to adopt a position in respect of reunification, because it is the right thing politically, morally, ethically, economically to happen. And Macron, the current premier of France, let the cat out of the bag when he thought out loud and he said publicly, the answer to Brexit is obviously the reunification of Ireland. And on that occasion, Macron simply said out loud what everybody really knows. So the job politically and diplomatically, therefore, is to move the European system along this journey in respect of self-determination for Ireland and reunification. And they now, more than ever, have an enlightened self-interest in seeing that happen. On the matter of the protocol, which all of you, I'm sure, are blue in the face listening about, the protocol is a set of legal protections, basic protections for the island of Ireland, for our economy, for the Good Friday Agreement and so on. By the way, folks, it's not the be all and end all. It doesn't solve the problem of Brexit, but it certainly mitigates and lessens the damage. And I think it's only fair to record that from Michel Barnier across the board, the Europeans have played very fair so far with Ireland and have stood with us. And I think it's only fair to record that. Equally, others across the globe in the United States and beyond have also stood with Ireland. And Canada, I know, equally will show an interest, and I hope through all of our efforts will increasingly, echo that sentiment. So Brian, yes, the issue of Brexit is absolutely pertinent to unity, but just remember this: there's nothing inevitable in any of these things. Brexit has certainly turbocharged our efforts. The increasing strength of Sinn Féin electorally, north and south nationally, turbocharges our efforts. But it would be a mistake for any of us to be complacent and to imagine that this is simply going to happen because it's the right thing, or that there's an inevitability about this. We are going to have to work harder than ever before, be more united, more determined than ever before. But it's very much game on, Brian, and you're right to identify Brexit and the European institutions as key to that. And likewise, Claire, in respect of unionism, I mean, we as Republicans need to be just challenging our own assumptions in some respects as regards what unionism thinks about all of these matters. And we need to be able to make a distinction between political unionism on the one hand, and the DUP in particular, and then those born into a unionist tradition with the small u, or unionists in business or in other sectors. Because even though political unionism is saying that they will not engage in any conversation on reunification, that they have no interest in it, they will argue for the union, and they are entitled to do that, by the way. That's absolutely fair enough. But that does not mean that people of a unionist persuasion aren't thinking about, talking about, speculating about the issue of reunification, because they are. And certainly over, again, recent days and weeks, there's been a couple of very significant events in Belfast. Recently, a big lunch, a huge event. There's been other events that the most surprising of people are showing up to, with a listening ear, with questions, of course. And I hope increasingly people from all persuasions will come, not just with questions, but with ideas and with asks, and with and bring all of that with them. In terms of political unionism, though, Claire, there has to be a bit of reality for ourselves. Unionism, those that wish at all costs to maintain the union, in all likelihood, will not really get into talks, substantive talks, until a referendum has been passed. There is a section of political unionism who will busy themselves pushing back against referendums, pushing back against the arguments that are increasingly crystallizing for reunification. But after the fact, after the referendum, be very sure that they will also engage. Our job as Republicans is to have an open ear, an open heart, and to encourage everybody to be part of this process, because although Sinn Féin and the Irish Republican struggle is to the vanguard of pressing this, of course, is a national question, and it's bigger than us. It's also an international question. So we need to accept that a lot of others are also going to be on the pitch. And yes, Gabriel and I can't read my own writing now, Saoirse, so have it Kevin. Gabriel and Kevin, I think. Or Vincent, sorry, Vincent. My writing is truly appalling. That needs to include parties like the Alliance, like the SDLP, like Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. And just to reflect to you, the way in which many of those parties are now engaging, and it's still limited, I don't want to pretend otherwise, but it is a world away from what they were saying and how they were thinking even 5 years ago. The Taoiseach has established this shared island unit. I mean, it's not great, it's all right, it fosters discussion, and that's terrific. It restates infrastructural, capital spending commitments, and that's okay. We want to see them delivered. It's not what we need. It's not the active preparation that we need, but it is nonetheless evidence that when they formed the last government, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and the Greens, they couldn't be silent on the issue of reunification. So you can read the tea leaves and be very clear, as the public view on this matter becomes clearer and clearer, the politicians will follow. We have all of the evidence on big social changes that happened around marriage equality and women's rights and so on and so forth. And so often the political establishment is way behind the people. And I think that is certainly the case on this question. And finally, Gabriel and Vincent, when it comes to it, politicians will be political on this issue. And I think the people will set the pace, and then it'll be for the political parties to catch up.
Mary Lou, we're cognizant of your time and the fact that it is later there in Ireland tonight, but I know Saoirse has another 2 batches of questions. So I'm wondering if you've got the time, yes?
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
yeah.
Saoirse.
Okay, on building support in Canada, Brian McIsaac asks, how can we in Canada best help? What are the top priorities? And Veronica Mockler asked specifically what role young Canadian artists and activists can play as allies to Irish unity.
Those are great questions, Brian and Veronica. And I'm always very reluctant to, for me to say from Ireland, from my home in Dublin, to say, this is what Canadian supporters should do. But I am happy to give, I suppose, this sense of guidance, and to make this ask of all of you, that you go at this now as activists and campaigners as though it was your first round of campaigning and lobbying. And I say that because I'm very conscious that those of us who spend a life in activism, or who spend any period of time in activism, the plus side is you become savvy, you become, you learn, you get the wisdom of all of that, which is terrific. But there's something kind of intoxicating about that moment when you decided that you are an activist, that moment when you decided that you were standing with Ireland, for freedom. And I'm asking people to kind of channel again that inner sense, that sense of just undiluted determination and optimism, and that's an ask that we're making of all. We're asking that you examine all of the infrastructure that's around you in Canada, opinion formers, opinion makers, obviously in the political and the diplomatic sphere. And in fact, only this weekend, Alan and Kieran and I had a really, really interesting conversations with one of your members of Parliament, which I thought was really encouraging. We need to do a lot more of that. But I guess as activists in Canada, you need to figure out, how do you give visibility to the issue of Ireland? How do you make it clear that the Good Friday Agreement marked a critical juncture in the ending of conflict and the primacy of politics, but we still have a dispute with Britain, and the peace process is not over. We have not reached our destination yet. How is that messaged to Canada, and how do we hook in with all of the key stakeholders in the labour unions, in business, in the arts? Veronica, as you raise arts, we see here, let me give you an example, and those of you that are on Twitter or on social media platforms will have seen different characters emerge, actors, some of them in comedy, some funnier than others, but all incredible people, and many of them are political. I'm going to instance a man by the name of Ty Hickey. He's from Cork. Saoirse knows him. You see, she's nodding furiously. And what we have found is that influencers, if I can use that trendy term, are hugely, hugely important in not just accessing new audiences, although they do that, but in explaining the politics of what's happening, why it's happened, what the backstory is, and most importantly, where all of this needs to go next. Influencers like that are often a million times more effective than, you know, a standard kind of political people on the stage. So I would just encourage Veronica, particularly where there's access to, you know, people in the arts, whether it's writers or singers, musicians, you know, any of that range, who are interested and who can use their art form and their unique voice to articulate that message around a new Ireland in a way that is engaging and exciting and optimistic and filled with hope. If we can engage people like that, Veronica, I think that would be incredible. And, you know, it's easy to hook people up, you know, from here to there, from Ireland to Canada. Let's face it, we're meeting on Zoom. Everybody's lives have been Zoomed for the last 18 months. So people are now accustomed to that. And I would just say that we need to be creative. We need to have our thinking caps on. And just remember, our world is a global village. We are citizens of the globe. And once we decide that we are going to connect people with our story, with our struggle, with our exciting project, if we can get the right people on board, nothing will stop it. And of course, Friends of Sinn Féin is a critical vehicle for all of these things, because for us, we have to have an organized, you know, and energetic hub in Canada. So of course, Friends of Sinn Féin will remain essential for our work in the time ahead.
All right. And finally, on legacy, Neil Doherty asks about the inquiry into the killing of Pat Finucane and how that was included in the Good Friday Agreement and yet still has not happened. Paul Kennedy asks about the current status of the British government legacy proposals. And Betty Kennedy, who is active in the Toronto branch of the Spring Hill West Rock Massacre group, asks about the Sinn Féin position on the British government granting amnesty. Both Kennedys have asked what role the US is going to play, whether they will go back on this amnesty decision because of American intervention.
Okay, so thank you, Neil, Paul, and Betty, and you raise a really, really critical issue. And I've said before, and let me say it again. When you're dealing with any British government, it is always essential to remember that you are dealing with the colonial power still. And it might sound very old hat, folks, because we're heading into 2022. But nonetheless, you can't understand or make head or tail of British government action and inaction unless you understand it in that framework. And of course, the conflict in Ireland was never a religious one. There is a religious marker, so because we're all still, although less, but still fairly lamentably white. So that was the cultural marker to differentiate. But the conflict in Ireland has always been a colonial one. And our friend Pat Doherty, I'm sure many of you know Pat, is former MP for West Tyrone, a Donegal man, used to say to us many moons ago, Kieran will remember this, when we were younger activists, I remember him saying, the Brits will give us our freedom quicker than they will give us truth. And I remember at the time thinking that was a bit, it turns out I think that Pat is right. Britain will not put its hand up to its dirty war in Ireland. Simple as. Britain will do everything in its power and has done. And Pat Finucane, Neil, you raised there the issue of the Pat Finucane inquiries. And I mean, the British system has openly defied international law to prevent such an inquiry into Pat Finucane. And by the way, this isn't about creating any hierarchy of victims. The Finucane family, as you know, would not want every person who lost their life, every victim of state collusion and British violence equally deserves truth and deserves justice. But the Pat Finucane case is particularly high profile, and there's a reason why they wish to keep the truth under wraps, and that is because, of course, as Geraldine Finucane has said many times, we know who pulled the trigger. That's not the question. The question is who ordered it. How high did it go? How far into Downing Street and into the British establishment did that go? And they're simply not prepared to tell the truth. So they have been at this business of amnesty for quite some time. This isn't a new manoeuvre by the British government. But just so as all of us are absolutely clear, we in Sinn Féin and Irish Republicans have consistently pushed back against any proposal for amnesty or for a statute of limitations. Some of our detractors, when you listen to them, would almost wish you to believe that we had proposed this or that we would benefit from it. We do not want it. We have made that clear, and we have gone head to head, toe to toe with successive British governments on this matter. They are proposing, Boris Johnson's government, an amnesty, a statute of limitations that would make a tin pot dictator blush. Such is its brazenness. It would stop not simply criminal actions, but inquests, civil actions. It is a shutdown. It is deliberately designed to draw a dark cloak over all of these cases, including the ones that have been mentioned here and many, many more. Question is, what do we do about it? Well, there has been and remains political unanimity on the island of Ireland. There's nobody in Irish political life, unionists, nationalists, Lords, anyone arguing for this amnesty. Nobody. There has been noise made at the UN level. The United States and others have come out and called the Brits out on this. Will that stop them? I don't know. I suspect that it will not. I suspect that Boris Johnson and the Tories, having made so many pledges to their boys and to their constituency, I think that they will play that card, and we anticipate that they will move the legislation. But I also anticipate that if they make that move, then I believe these matters will find themselves in courts for many, many years to come, because I know full well that none of the families, none of the communities, and none of the campaigns will be prepared to simply let that go or give up. I absolutely believe that they will continue in their efforts and use every legal, political, and diplomatic means available to them to get truth and get justice. But it's only fair to advise at a gathering like this that the Brits are serious about this. And we anticipate that they will make a move on it. They haven't done it yet, but they have repeatedly said that it is their intention. And you would have to imagine from Boris Johnson's point of view, and he's under a bit of pressure now domestically in his polling ratings and so on and so forth. The man is banging on about Peppa Pig. You don't need to know. If you don't know who Peppa Pig is, you really don't need to know, except that it's not anything that a Brit Prime Minister should be talking about. So he's under a bit of pressure. We expect that he will make this move. But you know, the families are not going to lie down under that. We have been encouraging the government in Dublin in particular to be particularly proactive on this. And I guess that kind of nearly, Saoirse, brings me back to kind of where I started just my remarks this evening. And it's this, you know, really to put the British government under pressure and to get the kind of results that we need, whether it's on legacy or Brexit itself or referendums on reunification. We need a government in Dublin that is proactive and determined and tenacious and that actually is committed to truth and dealing with legacy, committed to reunification and ending the division of the last century. And unfortunately, as we speak, we do not have a government that has that appetite or that political drive. So the elections, whenever they happen here, are going to be critical moments for us. And just to let all of you friends in Canada know that the team here in Dublin, in Belfast, in the Dáil, in the Seanad, in the executive, in the assembly, in councils right across the island, in the European Parliament, everybody knows that we are now full steam ahead, preparing to make our biggest mark, we hope, at the next available opportunity. But the question of legacy is certainly one to watch. And I was asked earlier about, you know, what can we do and how can we influence things? I think certainly that issue, that proposal around amnesty and the statute of limitations is something that we need to be very active on. And certainly people in the political system, in your own political system, need to be informed, need to be lobbied, and need to be put under pressure, because amnesties are generally regarded as a thing of the past. Like it's not good in the international legal order or the international human rights framework that anywhere announces such an expansive and brazen amnesty, but certainly not a place and an outfit that claims to be the mother of all parliaments in their modesty. So certainly that is something that we need to keep them under maximum pressure on, but just be warned, they're determined on this. So we're going to have to meet them with quite a ferocious lobby on an ongoing basis.
Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone who submitted questions. I'm sorry we didn't have time to get to them all, but there were some really, really excellent insights from all of you. So thank you. And thank you, Mary Lou.
Thank you, Saoirse. Thanks, Mary Lou. We're at that part in the program, Mary Lou, and you've done this for us here in Toronto a few years back, where you were here to present the Rita Adams Award at that time. And we do it each year, and it's a recognized commitment to the Republican struggle in Canada over the years. And this year, I'm going to hand it over to Frank Adams, who's with us today. And Frank will tell us a bit about the award and the recipient this year. Frank.
Dear Dev, is Misha Frank Adams. On behalf of the Adams Clan of Toronto and representing Friends of Sinn Féin Canada, I'm here today to present the Rita Adams Saoirse na hÉireann Award. This is the 8th year annual award given in memory of Rita Adams Moir, who passed away in 2014. The Rita Adams Saoirse na hÉireann Award is presented each year in recognition of outstanding commitment and dedication to the Irish Republican cause in Canada. Rita Adams was a lifelong Republican activist. She loved Irish music, dance, sport, August Gaeilge. Coming to Toronto in the 1950s, she became an activist in many causes throughout her long life. However, Rita's overarching concern was for justice unity, and equality in Ireland. She worked tirelessly in a number of groups for Irish freedom, as long as she was able to do so. Friends of Sinn Féin Canada is proud to present this award in Rita's name. Past recipients of the award include Pat Rooney, Toronto, Alex O'Donnell, Calgary, Jacinta O'Hanlon, Toronto, Larry Bradley, Ottawa, Jimmy McVeigh, Toronto, Bernard Ward, Vancouver, and Michael Quigley, Hamilton. Each of these recipients worked for decades in the Irish community to promote Irish freedom. The same can be said for this year's recipient. Friends of Sinn Féin Canada is pleased to announce that the recipient of the 2021 Rita Adams Saoirse na HÉireann Award is Chris Dehy of Montreal. A longtime supporter of Friends of Sinn Féin and the cause of Irish unity, Chris Dehy is very proud of his Irish heritage. His grandfather was a member of the Irish Volunteers and fought in the War of Independence. Chris first became active on Irish issues with the Coalition for Peace in Ireland in Montreal in the mid-90s. In 1999, he participated in a Canadian observer team to monitor sectarian orange marches in Portadown and on the Ormore Road. For the last 20 years, he has been a key organizer of Friends of Sinn Féin events in Montreal, as well as being a regular at the annual Friends of Sinn Féin dinners in Toronto. He also frequently attends the Sinn Féin Ard Hesh in Ireland. Chris has deep roots in the Montreal Irish community, being the vice president of the Montreal St. Patrick's Society, the president of the Coalition for Peace in Ireland, and a trustee of the Canadian Irish Studies Foundation. His dedication and commitment to a united Ireland are an inspiration to us all. Congratulations, Chris. You're a most deserving recipient of the 2021 Rita Adams Saoirse na HÉireann Award. And now I'd like to call on Friends of Sinn Féin board member Kevin Callahan to present the award to Chris.
Wib, bonjour de Montréal. Merci d'être ici avec nous. I have the great pleasure to give the Rita Adams Saoirse na HÉireann Award to a well-deserving recipient, friend and comrade, Chris Dehy. Chris, congratulations, my who.
C'est un grand honneur pour moi d'accepter ce prix, bien que je ne sois pas vraiment certain que je le mérite entièrement, surtout quand j'entends les noms des gens qui l'ont reçu avant moi, ainsi que quand je pense à d'autres militants tels Joyce Carson et George Berrios, qui ont été beaucoup plus impliqués que moi au fil des années. As I said, it's a great honor for me to receive this award, even though I'm not certain that I entirely deserve it. I was honored to have managed to finally track down George Berrios and Joyce Carson in the late 90s, and to, through them, become involved with the Coalition for Peace in Ireland and ultimately Friends of Sinn Féin. Growing up as I did in a family with a father of Irish extraction and a Quebecois mother in the 70s, was always deeply aware of the fact that British involvement in the 6 counties was fundamentally wrong, colonial, and the Stormont regime oppressive. For me to have played the small part that I have played has truly been an honor. And the only thing that I can say is, again, for myself, but for us all, is that we are truly living in interesting times. Brexit and other situations in the island of Ireland make it such that I think that we can all look towards seeing United Ireland in a very, perhaps I would even say distant future, perhaps a very close future, and can only call upon us all to keep on, because now's the time to keep keeping on. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Chris, and perhaps Mary Lou can encourage you to keep at it. Mary Lou.
Yes, so Chris, if you're not certain that you are a most deserving recipient of this award, you are in a minority of one, mon ami, because we are very, very sure of that fact. And I think this is a wonderful award in memory of an incredible woman. And Frank, thank you for those words about the water, Rita. Where would we be without our mammies, without our, be they Quebecois or Irish mammies? And you see the kind of the whole lineage of activism is just so immensely strong. And I'm just reflecting in hearing your words there, Chris, that all of this is so close to people. This is, I described the question of our liberation as a national issue, an international issue. It's also a family question. This is a question of justice for so many people who struggled before us. And Chris, my congratulations to you. I hope that this award will serve to redouble your efforts, spur you on even further to build on all the incredible work that you have done over such a long time. And we're very proud of you, Chris. We're very proud to have all of you as friends and comrades and activists in struggle. And so gorgeous, Maihu, very, very well done.
Thank you, Mary Lou. And once again, cognizant of your time, we really appreciate you taking your time out on a Sunday night to join with us here in Canada in our various time zones. I just want to say that these are exciting times, and we are very confident that you are the leader, you are the woman that will move us forward and win for us with the party, a united Ireland and freedom and independence from Britain. Thank you, Mary Lou.
Merci. Goodbye.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Mary Lou.